From a pickup truck in Utah that pushed its motor a little too far, and a jet engine test that went better than it looked, to a tractor pull in Europe that left this driver in the dust, and much more. Here are 6 catastrophic engine failures caught on camera. Jet engines undergo hours of rigorous testing before they carry a single passenger. Some tests may seem unnecessary and overly specific, but every nut and bolt needs to be in working order. People's lives depend on it. Blade-out testing is one of those specific tests meant to avoid catastrophic failure. If a fan blade breaks off in the engine, blade-out testing ensures the piece remains inside the shell and fragments don't pierce the outside enclosure. Here's what one of those tests look like inside a controlled environment. From what we can gather, this was actually a successful test. It passes as long as the engine doesn't throw shrapnel like a grenade. Fire and shaking are expected. Think of a broken fan blade like an unbalanced washing machine. It's gonna shake and rattle. It doesn't even have to keep working either. It just has to contain itself in the outer casing. When they run blade-out tests, they'll rig one of the blades with a small explosive charge. In the video, you can hear them counting down to detonation. When the charge explodes, it simulates a fan blade breaking due to wear and tear. A spinning fan blade stores enough energy to throw a mid-sized car about 100 feet into the air. All that energy gets released if it breaks off. Thankfully, engine casings are designed to contain that surge and keep people safe. Now all they have to do is land the plane. Tractor pulling is most popular in the United States, but events happen all around the world. For example, Midas sponsors the European Tractor Pulling Committee, or the ETPC. They host pulling competitions in Belgium and Italy. This next engine failure comes from a tractor pulling event in Belgium. At least we think it's Belgium, judging from the word Tesmedia on the tractor. It's the title of a song about a young medieval Dutch blacksmith. As you can see, this puller has a blacksmith painted on his tractor. He could have used one after his engine failed so badly that it split in half.
En je moet in Malen altijd tot de laatste mens blijven. Dat is nog nooit anders geweest. Ik zal niet herhalen wat Peter er straks tegen mij vertelde in mijn oortje.
Sources say this tractor was modified with a Ford GAA motor. They were designed by the Ford Motor Company during World War II to power certain models of the M4A3 Sherman mid-sized tank. In other words, this guy strapped a literal tank engine to his tractor. To his credit, it was working pretty well, until it wasn't. A dynamometer, or a dyno as it's commonly called, is a tool used to measure an engine's torque and horsepower. The more horsepower, the more work something can do. That's why large machines like cruise ships and planes have extremely high horsepower. They need to be able to do more work. Every year in Ogden, Utah, truck enthusiasts from around the country compete to see whose souped-up engine can produce the most horsepower. They hook up to a dyno and press the pedal to the floor. Some trucks, however, just aren't meant to work that hard. Sean Baca and his truck Master Shredder had already eclipsed 2,920 horsepower, but Sean wanted more. He was convinced his truck could push past 3,000. Clearly, he pushed a little too hard. Luckily, Sean escaped the fireball with only a few bruises. Spectators quickly doused the fire before it got out of hand. Master Shredder exploded at the 2,945 horsepower mark. Maybe one day, Sean can make his 3,000 horsepower dream come true. Diesel engines are about 20% more efficient than standard gas engines. Simply put, they can do more work, which is why heavy-duty trucks and machines rely on diesel. Now that said, these engines are vulnerable to what's called a diesel runaway. It's when the engine sucks in a hydrocarbon vapor or a flammable vapor and uses it as an external fuel source instead of its normal fuel source. If this happens, the engine will quickly rev up to its limit and stay there until it eventually fails. These guys at a truck pull event got to experience diesel runaway firsthand. Thankfully, they knew how to handle it.
Let's give him a big hand.
Most people's first reaction is to turn off the engine. Unfortunately, that doesn't work. Your truck isn't running on what's in the tank. It's running off the vapors entering through the air intake. It's like the vapors hacked into your engine and assumed control. Your key is useless. The only way to stop diesel runaway is to cut the air supply. You can do this by physically blocking the air intake or using a special fire extinguisher to smother the engine. You can't really see it, but that's what these guys did in the video. Have you ever heard of competitive tractor pulling? No? Well, do we have a treat for you. Tractor pulling is known as the world's heaviest sport. It's not about how fast you go or how many laps you complete. It's all about how far you can pull a giant weighted sled. Drivers enter with modified farm tractors. They'll hook those tractors to a sled containing a box full of weight. The weight is winched forward as the driver pulls the sled. The further they go, the heavier it gets. Eventually, the driver loses forward momentum and stops. Judges measure how far they pulled the sled within 1,000th of an inch. Sometimes, their modified engines work a little too hard. Take this driver from 2018, who may have gone the distance if his engine hadn't failed. Lucky Ducky made it about 121 feet before his engine failed. Given the hyper-niche nature of these engines, we're not sure what caused it to fail, but if you're a competitive tractor puller with a good answer, please leave a comment below. A standard pulling track is 30 feet wide by 320 feet long. If a driver makes it to the end, it's called a full pull. If multiple people full pull, they enter into a pull-off to determine a winner. This event from 2018 came down to a 5-way pull-off. In the end, Blower Power won with a sudden death distance of 190 feet. Helweg Rocket Science is a competitive tractor pulling team from the Netherlands. In 2012, Rocket Science found itself at Made's Power Weekend, the largest truck and tractor pulling event in Europe. The Rocket Science truck was equipped with a 3-turbo DAF engine. Usually, it makes for a wild run. This one got a little out of control.
Ollie, Ollie, Ollie.
Now this was more of a tire failure than an engine failure. Because what they're pulling is so heavy, it's not uncommon for the front wheels to come off the ground. Thankfully, the massive back wheels keep churning while the engine runs at full power. This time, the nose came up a little too high. The impact caused the heavy wheels to shatter and the heavy engine to scrape across the dirt. It stopped on a dime, causing the sled to ram into the tractor. Thankfully, the driver was okay and everyone walked away unharmed. We can't say the same for his tractor, though. If you enjoyed this video and want to see another just like it, then be sure to click the link on screen now. With that, thanks for watching, and be sure to tune in next time.